It was 1959. A rising star, her moment in the spotlight, and yet, decades later, Angie Dickinson still refuses to watch the footage. What happened on that set changed everything. Angie Dickinson was just 23 years old in 1959, a Hollywood new with luminous promise, a confident smile, and roles already coming in from big studios and television networks alike, and yet, beneath that glow, there was an ugliness that few saw at the time, and even fewer are willing to talk about now. That year, Dickinson filmed a made-for-TV anthology episode, an ostensibly innocent crime drama broadcast to a national audience, and while the plot itself has faded into obscurity, the making of that episode left a deep emotional scar on Dickinson. One she's never been willing to revisit, and for decades has refused to even watch, even as she continued acting in dozens of series and films. She spoke only once briefly, describing the set experience as strange, unsettling, and something shifted in me, but declined to elaborate. Contemporary articles hinted at on-set friction with the director, conflicts over her portrayal, and a creeping sense that decisions were being made over her head about her character and image in ways that undermined her agency and dignity. Dickinson had already navigated pressures typical for a young actress: studio expectations, image management, and the fleeting nature of fame, but this particular episode involved a scene that was tampered with during editing. What she thought would be a brief, innocuous moment turned into an extended, camera-lingered close-up that emphasized her vulnerability in a way she never agreed to, a portrayal she later called too intense, too invasive, a violation by modern standards of the actor-director trust she expected. She says she felt manipulated during post-production, as though her own performance had been warped into something she didn't recognize, played to elicit titillation under the guise of dramatic storytelling. When the episode aired, she was horrified, and when the fan mail arrived, it was mixed, some praising her haunting performance, others labeling it disturbing or uncomfortable. She took her lodestar values seriously: professionalism, trust, authenticity, but the shift in tone on screen made her feel complicit in something she never wanted to be part of. That sense of betrayal colored her career trajectory. While Dickinson continued working guest starring in series like The Rifleman, Mickey Spillin's Mike Hammer, General Electric Theater, and The Untouchables through 1960 and beyond, she began to pull away from roles that felt exploitative, accepted fewer offers, even skipped a big studio audition for what would become Rio Bravo. She realized Hollywood had a darker side, a part of the system that could hijack your image, twist your performance, and make you regret being in front of the camera, and she wasn't willing to endure that again. As the episode was rebroadcast in syndication over the following year, Dickinson would avoid TV screenings. She never went back to her parents' house when it was playing. She never invited friends over to her apartment when the network scheduled the time slot, and highly respected actress friends have recounted how Angie would visibly stiffen when someone mentioned that show, the one she made in '59. Over time, it became legend among insiders, a whispered cautionary tale about the power dynamics in Hollywood, the ways in which editing, production, and marketing can clash with an actor's sense of self, and how consent in performance isn't just on the set, but also in what's done later with your image. Later in her career, as Policewoman made her a household name in the 1970s, she rarely if ever mentioned the incident in interviews, and when asked about earlier appearances, she gently alluded to looking forward, not back. In her memoir and public appearances, she emphasized that moment as a turning point, though she wouldn't name it, where she asserted boundaries, insisted on approval of final cuts, and began to protect her agency fiercely. It wasn't until the recent wave of oral histories and celebrity memoirs, plus a new documentary about female actors reclaiming their power, that critics dug deeper into that '59 episode. One former crew member has now confirmed behind the camera that the original intention was never to linger on the vulnerable moment. The director's assistant admits the editing was rushed, last-minute decisions were made to keep a segment longer because the sponsors wanted it, and that those sponsors were pushing skimpier lighting, a more sultry close-up to help sell cigarettes or perfume. Dickinson felt played, but didn't then or now go public at the time because of contract clauses, her studio's protective machinery, the fear of being blacklisted, and the stigma around challenging male producers. In the '50s, her silence became part of the story, and the only voice left on screen was hers after broadcast. People wrote her letters asking why she looked so sad, so drained, not what they heard her say, and Dickinson internalized that shame, studying TV herself to learn editing, and production, she began setting new expectations for how she'd be portrayed, how she'd be respected, but the memory lingered. It was a moment when innocence met manipulation, when the bright lights flickered and showed a flicker of something darker. Decades later, at an awards tribute, the host off camera said, "Angie, do you remember that early show?" She hesitated for a full beat, but then simply said, "I remember it as a learning moment," a good quip, superficially, but those who know say she was thinking years. And maybe the truth really is, she remembers sitting in a screening, watching the cut, feeling her own voice taken from her, replaced with an atmosphere she never intended, feeling her younger self exposed, not revealed. She refused to watch the show again, even for archives. It was pulled from streaming for a time, though studios won't confirm if it was during her request. Today, it remains available only in private libraries or rare film archives. Still, a painful footnote in a career that spans 70 years. For Angie Dickinson, the lesson was searing. The power to act is not enough. You must also have the power to be heard, to say yes or no to how you're presented, to guard your story. It shaped her advocacy on sets in the 1970s for more comprehensive actor credits, stronger editing approval rights, and contributed quietly to Hollywood's awakening in actor rights, even as she never attached her name to those causes publicly. The show, that flicker of darkness from 1959, became the seed of her courage, and that's why, today, when anyone asks, "Will you ever rewatch that episode?" Angie Dickinson still shakes her head, not because she regrets being on TV, and certainly not because she regrets being Angie Dickinson, but because she knows the price of surrender, and she knows the cost of a voice gone wrong. She's survived it all: award shows, ups, downs, fame that soared, and the peek behind the curtain when kindness ended. For her, refusing to watch that one episode isn't about shame. It's about remembering the stakes. It's about a lesson she never wants to forget, not for her, but for everyone who's ever stepped in front of the lens. And if you listen closely to her story, you'll hear a tremor of that young actress, still wise enough to know, sometimes the camera captures more than the script, and sometimes true power is in never letting the final cut define you. Subscribe to Hollywood Untold for more emotional stories behind music legends and the feuds that shaped rock history. Tap the bell to never miss a beat.